So for this video, I'm going to be doing a tier list for all the current UFC champions, both men's and women's. I'm going to be basing this off of two things. Number one being skill, number two being popularity. And what I mean by popularity, I'm talking about people that are needle movers, someone that's marketable, and someone that can sell a pay-per-view. As you can see here, I have three tiers. The three tiers, the first one or the bottom one is Who the Fook. Obviously, that's going to explain itself. The second one or the middle one is co-main killers, people that just are popular enough to be in a headlining spot. People that are good, obviously kind of have a mainstream reach, but you're not going to be like, I really want to see that fight. They're just not going to be good headliners. And then the top one is Red Painting Night. Obviously, that's going to explain itself as well. Obviously, you're not going to be getting a proper Red Painting Night because there's only one person that can deliver a real Red Painting Night. But someone you know that's going to have a mainstream reach, someone that you're going to get a good pay-per-view out of, and people are going to want to see. I'm going to go ahead and just jump right into it. I guess we'll start off with the top one, the Red Painting Night. I'm going to go with the obvious one here, which I believe the obvious one would be, to me, Israel Adesanya. I believe he's the most popular on this list if we're talking about in terms of like following and mainstream reach. I got Israel Adesanya here, and he's definitely very skilled. There's no denying his skill. If you don't think Israel Adesanya is as good as he is popular, and you're just crazy. I don't think there was a lot of people saying he was a hype train before. I don't think he's a hype train. He's definitely proved that now. And then my second person on the Red Painting Night tier, I'm going to be going with the Nigerian Nightmare, fellow Nigerian Kamaru Usman. I think a while ago, a couple months ago, maybe a year ago, I probably would have put Usman at maybe a tier or two lower just because, you know, he wasn't a very exciting guy. People called him Snoozman, that's what Colby Covington called him. He was just a decision fighter, someone that would just grind you out to a decision. But especially as of lately, he's been finishing people and finishing a lot of high caliber opponents. Knocked out Jorge Masvidal in the second round brutally. I think he's definitely fallen into that Red Painting Night tier, especially as of recently, especially with the caliber of opponents he's been finishing. And then also on the Red Painting Night tier, I'm going to be going with Francis Ngannou. I think this also should be a fairly obvious one, simply because Francis Ngannou is like the Mike Tyson of UFC right now. I mean, he's one of those guys where you can't really blink if you're watching him fight. Minus the Stipe fight, that was definitely a more skilled tactical fight on his end. But nonetheless, someone like Francis who has that kind of power, and especially with the last fight knocking out Stipe in the fashion they did, he's definitely burst into that global superstar scene. And I really think that within the next couple fights, especially if he gets that John Jones fight, I really think Francis is going to keep growing as a fighter in terms of popularity and everything like that. And then for my final person here that I have for the Red Painting Night tier, I'm going to be drawing a female fighter. This one's going to surprise you guys, but I'm going to be pulling Rose Namajunas up to the top tier. You guys might be saying I'm crazy because obviously Amanda and Valentina are probably way more skilled than Rose. But if we're talking about in terms of who people want to see, Rose Namajunas is definitely very skilled. She's popular, and people would want to watch her fight because Rose is beatable. Someone could potentially beat Rose. People have beaten Rose before, and obviously with someone like Amanda or Valentina, they're just so flipping dominant. People don't want to watch that. Rose is exciting. She has a good following. Out of all the female fighters on this list, she is the most popular if we're talking about in terms of following. And like when you hear Rose fight, you hear people screaming out, Thug Rose! Thug Rose! You don't hear people screaming, oh my god, Lioness or Bullet, whenever Valentina or Amanda does something crazy. And now we're going to go ahead and dive into our second tier, the co-main killers. Well, I'm going to kick off with our female fighter, obviously the greatest female fighter of all time and definitely one of the GOATs of the sport, Amanda Nunes. She's just so flipping good. The problem is people don't want to watch her fight because it's just expected that Amanda Nunes is going to win. She's been so flipping dominant, and it doesn't look like there's anybody out there that's going to beat her anytime soon. And same thing with Valentina Shevchenko. I'm going to go ahead and throw her in the same tier as well. If both these fighters are headlining, it's not going to sell as much, so I think they're definitely co-main killers. They're very good. They're very skilled. Probably number 1 and 2 in terms of best female fighters of all time. And honestly, probably the only two people that could beat each other. Although Amanda's up 2-0 or 3-0, I believe, in fights against Valentino. I really just believe the problem with both of them is just they're so flipping dominant and they're so good that people just don't care to watch because they just know it's going to be a complete shutout. And that honestly is the problem when you get to a point when you're so good and you don't have anyone else to face. And then keeping it rolling with the co-main killers, I'm going to be throwing Charles Oliveira in there. And this one is a little bit weird. The only reason I'm throwing Charles Oliveira in the second tier in the co-main killers, I don't believe that Charles Oliveira is a co-main fighter. I really believe if you give Oliveira maybe 1 or 2 more fights, he's going to be a Red Painting Night type of guy. He's a very exciting guy. He can finish the fight both on the feet and on the ground. I mean, if you look at his win streak he's on a 9-fight win streak, finishing 8 of those 9 fights. Knocked out Michael Chandler in the second round after being pretty much, I don't want to say dominated, but it looked like the fight could have been finished on Chandler's end against Oliveira. Came back out and knocked out Chandler within like the first 30 seconds, like 20 seconds or something in round 2. Oliveira, the only reason I'm putting Oliveira on the second tier is just because he's a newer champion. I think he needs a little bit more time to keep building up a name and kind of getting a mainstream reach. But I really believe that Oliveira could make this jump to a Red Painting Night fighter within the next couple fights. And then my final fighter on the co-main kill list is Deiveson Figueiredo. Figueiredo, again, he's beatable, he's very skilled, but it's the problem with the flyweight division is there's not very many good dance partners, where you have someone like Oliveira who can make the jump to Red Paint tonight because of the dance partners. You have Conor McGregor, Dustin Poirier, Michael Chandler, Justin Gaethje, the list goes on of people on lightweight, versus someone like Figueiredo. He doesn't have that many good dance partners in flyweight. I mean, Moreno was a phenomenal dance partner, and I can't wait to see that rematch. But in terms of like depth of opponents that he's going to face, there's not very many people I'm like, oh, I want to see that fight or I want to see this fight. Keeping it rolling though, on to our third tier, the Who the Fook, the final tier. I'm going to start off right away with Aljamain Sterling, and this is coming from somebody who's an Aljamain Sterling fan. I just believe the way in which he won the title, especially given the fact that he was losing the fight. I believe he was losing the fight up until that point. Obviously, you can't officially say because it didn't go to the decision or anything, or it didn't get finished, but I think it was, the writing was on the wall that Aljamain was probably going to lose. It'll be interesting to see the second time around if he actually does make some adjustments and puts up a good fight and maybe beats Jan, but I don't see him beating Jan the second time around. I just think the fashion in which he won the belt makes it a little bit dicey, and then on top of that, I feel like he's been losing fans and how he's been acting after he won the belt, taking pictures with the belt, even though he says it's his friends doing it or whatever. He's been posting pictures of himself with the belt, going around doing photo ops, things like that. So that gets a little bit cheesy to me. That's why I'm throwing him in the bottom tier. And again, I'm an Aljamain Sterling fan, but again, how he acted after he won the belt, and given the fashion how he won the belt, that's why I'm putting him in on the final tier, the Who the Fook. Maybe he could beat Jan and make the jump to the second tier, but I just don't really see that happening. Also on this tier, I have Alexander Volkanovski. Again, Volkanovski is very good, he's very skilled, but he's not someone that's going to sell pay-per-views. He could be a co-main killer, but also I just feel like he's a decision fighter, like he just outpoints people. He doesn't finish people too often, and really in that last fight against Holloway, I believe Holloway won that last fight. I think it was a robbery, and I know people feel certain ways about that fight. I believe that Holloway won that last fight, and I think the controversy surrounding his past two fights, I think you can make a case that he definitely won the first fight. Second fight, I think Holloway won, and I think just given how he's kind of a decision fighter, people don't really care to see him, and he just doesn't have that big mainstream reach. And then obviously the final person, the only person that's left, again, is going to be Jan Blachowicz. I honestly believe out of all the fighters on this list, all three of these people, out of all the champions on the Who the Fook tier, are probably the most beatable. Jan Blachowicz, I honestly think that whether it be his next fight or the fight after that, probably will get beat. If he fights Yuri Prochazka, I think Yuri Prochazka will probably beat him. Jan Blachowicz is very good. He's a tough fighter. He's well-rounded, but he's old. He's like, I think he's like around 36, 37, and he doesn't really probably have that much time left in terms of a long reigning title run. He's just not really doing anything to get people that aren't hardcore fans involved in his fights and make him want to see him fight. And again, I just don't see him being someone who's a big headliner, someone who can move the needle and sell pay-per-views. So that's why I'm ranking these fighters the way I rank them. And honestly, I believe out of all the fighters on this list, the three on the bottom are probably the least popular and probably the most beatable. These are just my thoughts, my opinions, though. This is just very subjective to me. I'm sure people have different slots that they see different fighters going in. If you guys do, let me know in the comment section below and hear your guys' opinions, thoughts. I'm open to debate and I'm open to listen to people's opinions. I really enjoy that. It's one of my favorite parts about doing these kind of videos. If you guys did enjoy this video, though, please be sure to drop a like. If you guys are not subscribed already, please subscribe. I make videos like this all the time and it really helps my channel grow, and I'm really trying to make something out of this. If you guys know anyone else too that enjoys this type of content, send my video their way. I would greatly appreciate it. Like, comment, subscribe. Till next time, I will catch you guys later.